Okay, let's go ahead and get started. Again, good afternoon or good morning or good evening. Welcome to this month's second webinar of the month. I'm Ron Bro, CEO of TopStep. Thank you for joining today. We're going to go through some of the key features of the latest release and highlight a few things that we think you may benefit from. So I'm not going to go through everything we're going to cover because there's slides for all of this. But what I did was I kind of went through and I picked what I think are the more meatier of the release items. There's a lot of more items that we're not going to cover today. Things around API changes, integration changes, mobile app. So if you're interested in anything we're not covering, feel free to hit the release notes, or if you would like to ask us questions, feel free to do so. But for today, we're really just going to focus on a few of the things that affect your end users and have a potential benefit for everyone. So let's go through those. This was a very big ask that us old timers have been asking for a long time with OpenAir. It's around inline editing, right? The pain of having to update a field on a project by simply double clicking was not available till today. That was in the part of the release is inline editing. So you'll notice there's an editable flag on any list views where there are editable fields. And that's kind of the notification that there are fields that are editable. And then you can go through and double click on the fields and update the records and automatically save those changes without having to drill down and get to the properties page of the project. So once you double click and edit a field, it then will automatically save. So there's no save option. It will just automatically get the record saved update from OpenAir. One thing we did notice is sometimes we've seen where there's some fields, if they're not in your view, but OpenAir is looking for them, you might get prompted to add additional fields. Start date was one of those ones. If you remove start date and try to do inline editing, it doesn't like that. It's looking to have start date for some reason in the field population. So it'll warn you that the fields are missing. So once you add any columns that are missing due to the warning message, then everything works as expected. So highly recommend everyone should turn this on and let their end users know. You do have to request this from support. So the OpenAir 4 user interface and inline editing and list views switch is needed to be enabled from support. So go ahead and get your tickets in. Not all fields are available. I'm not going to go through all the fields. It will kind of gray out the ones that are not editable and show you the ones that are. But basically, all the standard fields for the most part, unless you're using like a field like a transactional budget that is not directly on the properties, then that's not available to be edited. But if you're using the standard budget, just the budget field, that one can be edited. But basically anything that's checkbox, a date, drop down, pick list, text area, or currency not listed here, pretty much is available for editing. Project Center, as you guys have seen, the Project Center has been an ongoing investment with OpenAir, and they have finally added some features that I think are really make a big impact to the Project Center. So we'll go through each one of these. So being able to look at this beyond just hours is, I think, a huge add, and giving project managers real quick visibility into their project health and their project financial situation. And so now basically being able to toggle between hours, and depending on what level costs you have enabled in your account, you will see different cost levels as part of that as well. And then obviously in charges as well. So from a charges perspective, being able to see that here is a real, in my opinion, a real game changer. So if we're looking at this from a cost perspective, we can toggle to the different cost values. So in this example, we've got a couple of costs on our user's account, $100 or $50. And then you can see here in these screenshots how the cost will basically get changed based on which cost you're toggling for that drop down. One also note is if you turn on the actuals piece to this, then it's going to take your actual time times whatever cost you're showing to see your actual cost in the past and then your booked cost in the future. And this goes same for charges. So this is really about time and hourly rates is what this is about. And so if you're doing a lot of T&M billing, as you have your billing rules set up, you can then toggle to see the charges show up in the project center and be able to see booked hours in the future times the hourly rates derived from the billing rules. What does that sound like? That's charge projections. So you can actually get charge projections into the project center now and visible right within the project itself. Again, turning actuals on, you now get actuals. So again, hours and charges directly from the invoices. So it's no longer predicated on the hours that were entered. It's predicated on the invoicing that was done in the past. So that toggle changes how OpenAir calculates. So this is really nice, be able to quickly get a view of what's in the past, what's in the future, and see, how is our trend and our project doing. So a couple of just reminders here. So if you're looking at hours and you have actuals turned off, you're just going to see booked hours on. Obviously, you'll see worked hours in the past, booked hours in the future. Cost is going to give you, if it's actuals off, hours booked times the varying cost, depending on what's enabled. And then if an actual's on, you're going to get the hours worked times the cost, and then the hours booked times the cost. And similar for charges with actual off, it's just time projections, past and future. When you turn the actuals on, you're going to get the actual time charges. And then in the future, you will get the timesheet projections based on future bookings and billing rules. First day of the week setting. This was something that a lot of our customers were asking about because when this project center came out, it was pretty much hard coded, I think, to Sunday through Saturday. A lot of customers don't follow the same start and end dates within their weeks. And so this became a bit of a problem for some customers. But now that has been resolved. So it will actually default to the company default starting point, or if users are having their own starting points, it will default to a user starting point. So we can now fluctuate the starting day of the week and see the impact in the project center. And then scrolling. So we're seeing more and more customers with larger project plans that they're looking to help the project center be able to help them manage. Those project plans require a lot of scrolling down and up and side to side. And if you navigate away or if you do a refresh, you kind of got to start over. This last release solved that issue. So you can now scroll and then even come back to it and it will put you back where you started. So it's nice to be able to, have the system remember where you were in the project and then be able to keep that position for you. We did see a little bit of buggy behavior, so just be aware if you are swapping like between hourly and costing versus charges. It will repaint, but we didn't find that sometimes the repainting wasn't correct. It was still showing hours in some columns, dollars in others. The fix there is a quick page refresh. So you refresh your browser and that solves it. So just be aware if you are switching back and forth. If you see some wonky data, just do a page refresh and that will do the trick. Multiple line content. So this is a really interesting add-on, and this really affects, in my opinion, this is really powerful for admins for the most part. And what this is doing is it is giving you line breaks and or separators inside the downloaded data in large text fields, i.e. mostly what we would say is audit trail. So if any of this one on the call has had to go in and run an audit trail report, dump the audit trail into an Excel, and then try to figure out how to parse it to get the data they needed, it can be quite an effort to do so, because there's no easy way to separate the different audits data easily. So you have to start finding, replacing, and gets kind of get a bit messy. Now you get these separators built into the downloaded data, either as a line break in a PDF or HTML, or as a pipe in the CSV downloads. And now we can key on those details to see the audit trail much more clearly and be able to use it in CSV much more easily. So here's an example, typical audit trail here in the UI. You run the report, you get this. And when you run it in the PDF now, it's going to show. It's not going to be jumbled up like it was. It's going to actually show the different line breaks, similar to what you see in the UI. In the CSV, you would get all these details inside of a single cell that you'd have to then figure out how to parse that to get meaningful. Now you get these pipe separators inside the data, and so now you can do a text to columns formula to use the pipe to separate each update, each dated update, so you can more easily get to the data you're interested in. And same for HTML. It would come out in more of a paragraph format versus a page break, line break, so much more clearer to look at. So again, this is already auto-enabled in everyone's account. So again, could be very helpful for administrators trying to parse out audit data. Stricter permission control for extended fields. This actually was auto-enabled, and this caused quite a bit of rippling of unexpected problems in a lot of our customers that we had to go figure out what was going on. For those of you that are using OpenAir costs inside of your system to generate project margin and profitability, often you want to protect those costs from certain roles. And so you could check it in the role, who has the ability to view, who has the ability to modify, or who can't view or modify at all. And if you don't have the permission to view or modify at all, if you try to pull a cost value into a report or try to run a report with it, as you know, you don't have permission to run this report. However, it didn't keep you from being able to use like custom calculations that use that report, that use that value. And so you were able to then still run reports, even though cost was a factor in the report. It wasn't a direct value in the report. You were still able to run those reports even if you didn't have permissions. And I think that's what OpenAir was trying to fix when they put this in place, is really trying to enforce not just direct cost access, but also some of the permutations of using the cost. Well, what it did was basically it broke a lot of reports for a lot of customers that didn't realize that this was being enabled in their account, and didn't realize and obviously didn't know what the repercussions were. So here's an example. We have a custom calc that's using margin, cost, and projected billing to derive some margin percentages. And even though I don't have permission to view costs, I still have the permission to run a report using this projected margin. And so, if I so wanted to, I could potentially back into some costing data, which is not ideal and not intended for what you were trying to achieve with your security around costs. So it is an internal setting. It's called use stricter permission. So again, this was auto-enabled in a lot of accounts. And when this happened, it impacts any custom calc that is touching any costing data. But there's also some other fields that impact. So project costs you would expect, but also projected billing and project billing based on rules was impacted too. So even though you don't have costs in some of these values direct, it was impacting the ability to report for users without access. So Again, we had to disable this setting for a few customers, but so be aware if it's there. You may have it enabled. It may not be impacting you, but something to think about when you are putting a cost strategy in place inside of OpenAir. Expenses. Are you using expenses in OpenAir? And if you are, most customers will be storing attachments either through directly uploading into OpenAir or using the expense app. If you're using either of those, in order to get to an expense, see a quick view of the expense, you had to get into the expense report. You had to get into the receipt. Then you had to do a download. There was just no easy way to quickly view what the expense attachment looked like. Thus, the birth of this thumbnail feature. And so now you can actually pull the thumbnail, which is the receipt attachment, into the receipt list view, or into the expense report list view if it's at the expense report level. And now you can just click on it and get a preview of what's in the detail. So whether it's a PDF or it's an Excel document or Word document or image, it'll show those here, and then you can quickly drill into and open up a second window to kind of get a quick view of what's there. So very quickly, a preview option. It could be save a lot of time for approvers as they're going through and validating the attachments match the detail in the receipt. It can be very helpful. And so here's an example for PDF in the attachment viewer. You could have multiple PDFs and have just to get a nice quick view of what it is without having to download it and then open it on your desktop. Another enhancement that I think is really nice is in the invoicing module, you have the ability to report and view charges. Charges have projects associated to them, but in the past, you could bring the project detail, but you could not bring a lot of the custom fields associated with projects. And that is now available in the charge list view. So in the charge list view now, you can bring custom fields associated with projects. So you could always bring like standard fields, project manager, project stage were available. Now you can add custom fields to that view. So it could be very helpful pulling in any kind of custom field that could be beneficial to the finance folks as they're reviewing the invoice charges to generate invoicing data. So again, nice little add to the system. You'll also probably notice if you go to My Reports, it looks a little different than it did before this release. They've basically taken kind of the project list view and some of the advanced features, and they have duplicated it within the report list view. So you'll have a lot of the same filtering, bulk actions, columns, rearrangement, sorting, all of those same. And you can also save views and share views of these, just like you can in the project view. So all the same functionality that was in the project list view now is now available in the report view under My Reports. So again, just adding that added functionality to your reports and being able to quickly be able to see what you need to see, get to what you need to get to can be very helpful. Also, they've added some additional available reporting values in some of the tabular reports, or if you're old school, detail reports. So project billing rules, you run a project billing rule detail report in the past. If you got time billing rules, a lot of customers will want to see what are the date, if there's a start and end date. And if there are any filters around phases and tasks, you could not bring that data you had to dump the table and then have to figure out what you're looking for. Now you can add those details into your billing rule tabular report. If you're doing fixed fee, you can now bring the percentage into the report if it's set at a task or phase level, as well as the amount of any fixed fee milestone reporting. So again, additional details in the reporting for billing rules. And then there's also additional for RevRec rules. So if you're doing like percent complete RevRec, you can bring in the more details around how you're calculating the percent complete, whether it be percent for a task or phase or approved over planned hours. So you can bring that detail in. For as-built rules, you can bring a time range in, and then for fixed fee, bringing in the dollar amount, and then the fixed fee date or milestone, bringing in the dollar amount, the dates, and the milestones that and or trigger that fixed fee recognition rule. So just more information at our disposal. And then I think this is the last slide for today. It's really about they're trying to improve the user experience around the self-support page. So this looks a little more up to date, a little more modern looking. It's got all the same, a lot of the same functionality though, but it does give you a little more information. I think it's better use of the real estate. So hopefully better experience as you're going to either trying to get into Suite Answers or opening up a case to turn on the line item editing functionality we talked about. So again, you'll notice this different view when you go into support. So again, thank you for joining this month's webinar. We appreciate your loyalty to TopStep and OpenAir.